moment, but first I'm going to say that we acknowledge the Lenni Lenape as the original people of this land and their continuing relationship with their territory. Over a period of 250 years, many Lenape people were removed and dispersed throughout the country. Some took refuge with other tribes, and a large number of Lenape families remained in the homelands and continued the traditions of their ancestors. This land acknowledgement by itself is a small gesture. We hope to offer this small action as an opening to greater public consciousness of Native sovereignty and cultural rights. Especially after the floods of last week, I think the aspiration of the great Lenape chief Tamanend is particularly appropriate. That there be harmony between the indigenous people of this land and the descendants of the immigrants to this land, as long as the rivers and creeks flow and the sun, moon, and stars shine. And the rivers and creeks were certainly flowing, so hopefully we can think of that as a flowing of good feelings and love, maybe. Beyond all the scary things that it indicates that we need to work on. But okay, so Sandi Parentosi, she is nationally recognized potter and has been hand building pots for over 30 years. Her work, which is predominantly slab built, has been featured in Studio Potter, Ceramics Monthly, Clay Times, and over a dozen books on clay work. She's presented numerous workshops across the country and has exhibited her work nationally and abroad. Her work is in both museums and private collections. She and her husband, Neil Patterson, maintain a private studio, Neighborhood Potters, in Philadelphia. And I'll add, she was a resident artist at the Clay Studio. So you have to add something in there. And then Neil Patterson has been making pots for 40 years. Neil has a BFA from the Cleveland Institute of Art and an MFA from Louisiana State University. He was a core student at Penland for 2 years and spent a year studying ceramics at the Cardiff Institute of Higher Education in Wales. He's been an artist in residence at the Clay Studio in Philadelphia and teaches part-time at several local colleges. Together with his wife, Sandi, we heard this part already. This is why they do it together. Usually they doesn't overlap. So I'm gonna also read to you the statement from their website because I think it's important to, celebrate both of you separately and then what this incredible work that you've done together over the past 21 years and more, of course. Our work is created in the rich cultural environment of the Fairmount neighborhood surrounding the Philadelphia Museum of Art. We are the neighborhood potters. We choose to make functional pottery because it enriches daily living. Pots help us connect with people on a very basic human level. In these times of fast food, where so much food is eaten out of paper, plastic, or styrofoam, we feel that handmade pottery can bring some soul to the daily rituals of eating and drinking. Our goal is to pursue and promote the creativity, diversity, and excellence of functional pottery being made in Philadelphia. We strive to educate, inspire, and inform the Philadelphia audience and beyond about this timeless art form. In our work, we strive to show the vitality of clay, especially through the use of texture. Most of Neil's forms begin on a potter's wheel and are then altered, faceted, ridged, cut, and reassembled. Most of Sandi's forms are hand-built and are either textured or decorated. While she also works on the wheel, Sandi finds that working with slabs offers her more versatility to develop her ideas with forms. In our functional work, we want to make pots that are beautiful to look at, friendly, and comfortable to use. What a wonderful statement and mission. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for
having us.
I've lived in Philadelphia for almost 20 years, I think, and I've always really been inspired by what you both do, and I've known about neighborhood potters for just as long, probably, and always heard in my neighborhood here of Fairmount, which is your neighborhood, the love with which people speak of you both and your institution. And my neighbor just this morning was saying, of course, Neil taught me ceramics, so everywhere. And
yeah, stick around long enough,
I think it's more than that. Yeah, for sure. I want to start the way I often do with you both answering the question, how and why did you make the brave decision to make your life in art? And I'll let you two decide who's going to go first.
You want me to go first?
Sure.
I was really fortunate to have an excellent art teacher in high school. His name was Joe Turkley. I can't remember. We'll look at images a little later. I usually include an image of one of his sculptures. He was a figurative sculptor. and my high school had Joe there as an artist in residence. And so the art studio, which was in an old barn, was filled with his work. And you could see the physical manifestation of a creative life. And for someone who is like 15, 16 years old, that was very impactful. And that's, I've been drawing since high school. That's when I really got started and got hooked on clay. So yeah, early on. So I'm grateful to have had a really good teacher early in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but you said you were drawing before that. So you had a sense, even as a young person, that you wanted to.
I was always doing creative things as a kid, drawing, building forts, things in the woods. Yeah.
Yeah. And you were encouraged in that by people, or, did you feel like it was something?
Well, when I
Yeah.
was encouraged. I think when I decided to go to art school, my parents hoped that it would be something I would get over.
Likewise.
They
Yeah.
saw how, how involved I was and grew to appreciate it very quickly. And I was really very supported. So that is also something I'm grateful for.
Can you talk a little bit about like the feeling that being creative gave you, and like how you knew that it was, something worth doing every day for the rest of your life?
Well, I came from, I guess, what would now be called a very progressive family. And in my family, there was a lot of speaking out against injustices in the world. At that time, it was Vietnam War, and as a kid. And so I just always kind of had it in my heart that I wanted to do something that contributed to the creative, positive elements in society. And I could never wrap my head around how people would want to make guns or weapons, or, kind of contribute to the destructive side of society. So I always had that in the back of my head, that I want to do something positive for the world. So I hope we're doing enough.
Yeah.
We need a lot more in the positive column.
Yeah, but you guys are doing a great job. You don't need to doubt that. But that's really wonderful. I mean, that the idea of adding something positive throughout, coming into the artistic world myself on the other side as a curator, I'm not making anything. So I've often thought, like, you have to examine, why are you doing this? Is it worthwhile? And it is that idea of putting creativity in the world and helping people engage with the creativity. So I see myself as the person who helps those who aren't artists to kind of benefit from what you as artists are doing. And so I love that you said that. And I also wrote down physical manifestation of an artistic life. I love that phrase, which may be what your studio is now. So
yeah, I hope people see that here.
Definitely physical.
Great. Well, thank you, Neil. How about you, Sandy? What was it is a brave decision.
Yeah, I don't even think it was ever a conscious decision. It was more like Neil. I always drew as a kid, and my mother recognized that I loved to draw, and she was a seamstress. So I would actually draw outfits because I thought I would be a fashion designer.
Oh,
And I would name them. I would name the models, and I'd show them to my mother, and she'd say, well, maybe when you're older, you could wear that. But so she started me in art classes at a young age. And so I always did art classes. And then after high school, I worked at Bell Telephone for a couple of years as a secretary and a service rep. And I was going to Fleischer. I was always going to art classes still. And my boss asked me to do a painting of his sailboat, because he knew I liked art. So I did that. And then pretty soon, a lot of people at Bell Telephone were asking me to do like a painting of their dog or whatever. And I thought, well, maybe I should just do this. And my mother was like Neil's family. I think she thought it was something I would get over, because art was not something that was really a career choice when I was growing up. And I always think about the fact that whenever it was the day where the people come in to talk to you about careers, there was never an artist. It was like the dentist and the fireman. And, so there was never, it was never presented as an option. So my mother said, well, you have to pay for this if you're going to do this. And so I did. And midway through art school, she saw how serious I was. And then she started like giving me money for supplies. And and then I got like, it just, and I just kept going, and I went into graphic design and freelanced for years, and then had my own graphic design business for 20 years. And then I started taking classes at the Clay Studio in 1984. And that just hooked me. So I would work all day at my job and then work all night into the wee hours. At the Clay Studio when I became an associate, and I could do that. And, it just, so I think it was just a path that I was following, and never really, it was never a decision, I'm going to do this. It was just, I made changes to be able to do what was making me feel like I was doing the right thing, kind of. And working at Bell Telephone, while it was a great experience, it was not what I saw in the future. So,
Sometimes you need those things to say, nope, don't want to keep doing that.
Yeah, you have to take chances. I always think whenever I am at a place where I want to take a big chance and it's scary, I always just ask myself, what's the worst that can happen? And usually the worst that can happen is always something I could deal with. I mean, not certainly, right now there's a lot of horrible things, and you can't deal with, people are having a hard time dealing, but those decisions that you make, usually you can figure something out. If something doesn't work out, I just always felt like, well, worst that can happen is this, and then I'll do that. So
yeah. Well, and you said when you started it wasn't really a choice, but it was actually a series of really brave choices you had to make to kind of go against what your mom thought was the right thing, and that you had to risk maybe what you thought was comfortable or like a safe life.
That's true. I guess, that you're right. I guess it wasn't just like a declaration of I'm going to be an artist. It was more, that's not a term that I would ever use, but it was more just the path, that the decisions. Yeah. And never realized I would ever be doing clay full time when I started. Certainly not. But then the computers entered graphics, and I was not going down that road.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people sort of had that moment as graphic designers. We're like, no, I need to keep working with my hands, so I have to figure something else out. I have to say, I ask that same question to everyone because I often have people kind of say like, oh, I never thought of it as being brave. And I really want artists to feel like how brave and honorable it is to make those choices, and that's important for the world. So
well,
it kind of chokes me up every time I think
about it. I'm feeling choked up because I guess I didn't see it as brave. It's bravery is something I guess I see in a different way, but thank you for thinking it's brave. I guess it is.
Yeah, because you're giving something to the world and risking, like we're so socialized to think of life has to be within this certain way. So anyway, it's brave to go outside that. Do you remember who your teacher was in 1984 at the Clay Studio?
Oh, I sure do.
Is
she here? Kathy Reagan. Well, it was Reagan. She was my first teacher.
Yeah, that was exciting.
Here. And
I have to change my view so I can go back to gallery and see everybody. I don't know. Claire's there. And who else? Yeah.
And Katherine Nara was an early teacher, and she's had a huge influence on me, Katherine.
And in 1984, it was at
the old bill. It was on at Cuthbert Street, in the basement, at the corner of Cuthbert and 2nd Street.
Yeah, the one with the arched windows.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, let's see. Kathy and Catherine are going to be guests on Lunch and Learn in.
Yeah, I know. That's great.
2 weeks or something.
Yeah, I can't remember now. I think on the 30th.
Okay.
That's going to be great. Okay. Well, and now we have to really have to change your bio on our website so we can say you took classes, you were an associate, and you were a president.
Yeah, I was there for 11 years.
Yeah, that's
hard
great.
to leave the Clay Studio. Now that felt brave, leaving my nest, but
yeah,
that was also a good thing.
Well, that's great. And we kind of now have gotten to the part of the program where we can look at your work. So I'm gonna make you, wait, I have to give you rights. How do I do that? You'd think I'd figured it out by now. Here we go. And you are a co-host. So now you can
Yep.
share
Alright.
your screen.
Give me a minute.
Yeah, we have 30 people. I have to tell you, we haven't had 30 people on Lunch and Learn since the beginning of the summer. So it is definitely
We're honored
celebrating that
then.
Great.
Yes.
that's our big
Thank goodness
star.
for this rainy day. All right,
Yes,
well,
for
there
those
it
in
is.
Philly. For those around the world, thank you for tuning in.
Yeah,
People
thank
in other
you.
parts of the country.
Yeah.
So this, I'll talk about this because I was a part of this move from Cuthbert Street to the Second Street Art Building. And it was, oh my God, it was such an exciting time. Seriously, to have that, we all visited the space before the work even got done. There's me. Yeah, that's Janet Grau up with the umbrella, and lots of other people, Fran Scott, Ewen Quo, Jimmy Clark, a lot of people that were, yeah, it was great. And becoming a resident there was a really great experience. I was yeah, like you said, a student and an associate. And for those of you who don't know what that is, you get a shared space and you have 24-hour access, and I used it well. That's the building that is there now. And when we got the building, they said there was a 30-year lease, and that just seemed like a lifetime. I still can't quite believe that it's here, but I love being part of. That was my space. That up in the left-hand corner is George Perlman. That was the big front space when you come up the steps. And we divided that with shelving. And that's me on the lower left, me, Janet Grau, and George. That's my space. And that's my old work and me with a lot of hair. And then on here, I think I'm over on the side there. We took roof shots. So that was the group that was there then. And so that's me and Lisa Naples right above me. That's how we got to be friends, Janet Grau, and cast of characters that was there at the time. Great group of people.
I think I missed out on roof hangouts. We've never been allowed to.
Oh yeah, yeah. We weren't supposed to go up on the roof, but yeah, there were many coffee times up on the roof. I can say that now, but it was not easy to get up there. It was like this wall ladder, but you know, when you're 30 years younger, you can manage that with coffee and cake.
Yeah, well, and we're really honoring that we're gonna have a roof garden, so
That's great.
we won't have to climb a ladder, but please come over and have coffee and cake.
Yeah,
with us.
yeah, I
Maybe
will.
bring some biscotti.
I'll bring biscotti, yeah.
That would be great.
That's my old space. That's 1993.
A lot of pots.
Yeah, I made a lot of work. I mean, I wasn't really doing, I guess I was just starting to do shows. I was still working at graphics and then working at the clay studio at night. And I guess we all have those moments where we think, oh my God, how did I ever do that? I mean, I would work all day at my graphics job and then come home, run, eat something and go to the studio at 9 at night and stay till 2 and 3 in the morning. But you know, it's what there's Janet Grau. She was my studio mate for a while. Look how young I look. Oh my gosh. So that was Janet's space. She was a great studio mate. There were a lot of other great people there at the time. And that's, I was gone by then, by the 25th anniversary, but I was just like looking at old photos and just recognizing all these people that were big part of our lives back then. They were our social, that was our.
This is the year we moved here.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
So.
2000.
Great.
This is some old raku work. That's
Beautiful.
I got interested in raku up at Chester Springs, and so I made a lot of work and fired it out there. It was great. All slab built.
Yeah, those are great forms.
And this is really, this cup on the upper left looks like it was done by a child, but it was actually done by me in 92 or something. And then it translated into the cup below. And that really set me on a path where I felt like I was developing a body of work, because I was always trying all different stuff. And I still do that. But for a lot of years, I I was able to develop a body of work and start to do shows, because you really do have to have a body of work to do shows. You can't be all over the place. I learned that early on. And so that, and this is where I met Neil at Anderson Ranch. Yeah, that's Chris Daly. Neil was the assistant in that class. That's Doug Casebeer and his wife, and Doug on the right. And that was us as assistants back in, is that 92? 92, we spent the summer there as assistants. We had met in 89 and wrote letters for a couple of years because Neil was at LSU and in Wales. And then we finally were in the same place. That's more of the body work I was doing then with Terra Sigillata.
All from the clay studio.
All from the clay
years,
studio.
yeah.
This is all clay studio. Let's keep going. That's the wall inside the prison. I found a lot of inspiration in a lot of different natural things.
And I see some messages in chat, but we're not reading them. So if there's any questions, people have, we love questions.
Yeah, thanks for doing that. I meant to say we'll come back to questions at the end. Absolutely.
This is all clay studio. This is when I started doing shows, and I just loved lining pots up. It was like when my mother would make pizzelles, she'd line them all up on the counter. Somehow there was an order. She was very meticulous, and I have that gene, and I fight it sometimes, but I do love lining up pots.
Well, that's interesting, the pizzelles, that reference, because there's that transference of pattern.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. A little cream or sugar. Should I do this?
Yeah.
Where do we go?
Just-
Okay. Okay. And this is more work that was done at the clay studio. Still Terra Sigillata. So at this point, I was doing a lot of craft shows and also still working at graphics, but then that phased out eventually.
That's actually the one question that Matt put in the chat about to talk a little bit more about your transition from graphic design and just to pottery. 100%.
Yeah, well, graphic design really changed, and everything was being done on the computer. And what I really loved about graphics was all the handwork. And when that was gone, there was no, gut feeling about it. I just did the work, and I hated the computer, and I never saw clients anymore. So I just felt like I had to get out. So I gave up my physical space, started freelancing myself out again, like I did in the beginning, which was the worst thing that could happen when I started my business. And it was actually not the worst thing, because I was able to work in the daytime at freelancing and go to the studio at night. And I gave myself 5 years, and that seems random, but I had a friend who was a restaurant owner, and he always said it takes about 5 years for a restaurant to make it. So I thought, all right, well, maybe it takes 5 years for this to happen. And it was about 5 years in where we were doing our taxes, and I had made $200 more from clay than I had from graphics. And that was all I needed. I was like, all right, it's not mainly the graphics. And that's when I started saying no to the graphics work, which always gave me a knot in my stomach, because it was like $30 an hour versus zero, going to clay studio and hoping I can sell work. But, I was able to just keep making money and paying bills while I could develop the work. So that was because I was able to freelance myself out. But the transition was I might still be doing graphics if the handwork was still there. So I guess I'm grateful for the computer, even though it's still not my tool.
Worst transition. Yeah, I could see that. And then you were doing shows. So what was that like 10 shows a year or traveling?
Oh no, I could never do 10 shows a year. Maybe I would do 3 shows a year, and then I taught a lot of workshops all over the country. I was teaching maybe 5 to 7 workshops a year for 25 years. I don't do that anymore. I stopped a couple of years ago just because it was mostly the travel. I love the people. It's getting together with a bunch of people that want to make pots together. That's joy. But the travel was just I was started to teach more here at the studio, so I just didn't feel a need to do that anymore. And the shows are the shows. I mean, some are great, some are not, and if they're not, you're really doing a lot of good trading. So we have a lot of good pots because of bad shows, really, because you're not trading if you're selling.
Well,
I met all of our friends at shows. People
doing shows and doing workshops also kind of helps you build your clientele all over the country, because I mean, like, I started going to NCCA when I started at the clay studio in 2015, and I would say I was from Philadelphia, meeting new people, and they'd be like, "Oh, say hi to Neil and Sandy for me," like in city or whatever. So everybody knows who you are.
Well, it's interesting because years ago, Karen Carnes ran this show at Demarest, New Jersey, a really great pottery sale that's still going on in December. And I remember being there next to her, and somebody asked her what was the key to her success. And she said, staying in one place. She said, making, keep making your
Make good
work
work, yeah.
and make good work and stay in one place. And that really stuck with me. Not that I had, that I was going to travel, but it just made it made so much sense. And when I look back on that, I thought, she's absolutely right. If you're in one place, then, people are like, oh yeah, they live in Philly. It's like, so that, I think that's why people just, and again, just getting older and being around longer, you get to know more people.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's an exciting couple of photos.
A little development here. Yeah. So when our residencies were up, we did rent for 5 years a studio on 3rd Street in Old City. And it was really not tenable because the electricity in the building was only 60 amps for the entire building. So running electric kilns was a little problem sometimes. And we wanted to try to buy a building, but we had almost no money. And we found this place. When I see these pictures, it's such a wreck. And I think Susan Charleston is tuned in here. She took these photos back in 2000 when we bought the place. And
what a dump.
What a dump. Yeah, it's all we could afford though.
I mean, it was filled with skeevy furniture, and we had to buy it as is, but it was $40,000 and we could qualify for 38. So
to borrow, yeah. So we scraped together everything else we could and did as much work ourselves. Needed structural work. We ripped out ceilings, and Linda Cordell helped us that summer 21 years ago, just ripping out walls, and what a mess. Oh boy.
I remember being really exhausted that day. We all just like sat on the rubble.
Yeah. So eventually we got it to kind of like this point, really over the summer. So it'll be 21 years in September that we moved our studio from Old City here. So that's why we're having our 21st birthday party in a couple weeks. So hopefully you can come by if you're in the neighborhood and join us for some cake. And
yeah, I'm putting the link in the chat for everyone to Sandi and Neil's website, so you can see the details of the show for that. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
We loved Old City, but we love Fairmount too. It's the neighborhood we live in. It was a big change. There were no coffee shops here 21 years ago.
That was
Zero.
A problem. That was a serious problem.
Now I'm glad to say we have coffee shops.
Got a new one on the corner.
Yes. Yeah, we're happy about that. So this is some of Sandi's work from when we first moved here. I don't know if you want to talk about sketching.
Yeah, I sketch a lot before I make work. A lot of people make little clay sketches. I usually make a pencil sketch. There's a bunch of work. And when I switched from earthenware to porcelain because of a serious skin condition from the iron and the clay, this is all the stuff I was sort of experimenting with in search of, that new body of work, which I actually can say I never found the one body, but several of them. So I finally learned to accept that that's kind of what I love about this. I do like to try new things. And after working at one body of work for 14 years, I'm glad to be able to experiment with several different bodies of work now. It leaves a lot of things open.
Lots of testing. So this is some of the work that I was making when I got here 20 years ago.
And wait, was that vessel referencing the building facade?
Not specifically, but I do look at architecture a lot, but not specifically.
The siding and the
maybe
triangles on the front of the cornices.
Yeah, there might be a reason I put these two images together subconsciously, Jennifer. But I just love, the texture and what you can do with clay on the wheel. So this work, actually, I'm going to go back a little with my work. This was made at the clay studio. So I give a shout out to my high school teacher, and I always give shout out to my teachers from Cleveland Institute of Art, Bill Briard and Judith Solomon. and also Ron Myers and Michael Simon, who sadly we just lost, who are teachers of mine at Penland. But I have to say now, shouting out to the Clay Studio, probably my biggest period of growth were those 5 years as a resident at the Clay Studio. And this work that I'm showing now is from that time. And this is front and back of the same bottle. I built a wood kiln at Tyler, so I was doing a lot of wood firing at the time. And these are wheel thrown elements kind of pieced and quilted together. Also, while at the Clay Studio, I started teaching a project home, and Katherine started the Claymobile program while we were there as residents. And what a brilliant thing. It's, I feel like, done such positive things for our city. I believe Jimmy Clark taught the first couple classes at Project Home himself, and then brought me in. They didn't have a vehicle yet. They called it the Claymobile, but we used our cars to get around. But that became kind of an important aspect of kind of outside of studio work, teaching and interacting with the community. This piece was in my solo show at the Clay Studio toward the end of my time there. Okay. So Clay Studio, we had gas kilns. I was able to, fire gas reduction like this work. Love these glazes. And I often talk about travel a bit in influencing the work we do too. And seeing a museum like this in Italy, where they just have all these historical pots lined up, for potters, this is of course a thrill. And after some travel, sometimes I'll come back, and this is almost a direct ripoff of an Etruscan oil pot. This is too. And I like to just have fun sometimes in the studio and be a little whimsical, not too serious. And it's refreshing, and it also can lead to other pieces that I feel like maybe are more developed, I guess, in my own aesthetic. So that's where these bird and animal pieces started to come from, these llama bowls and bird bowls. I guess we're going to go back to Sandi for a little bit.
Yes, this is one of the things I explored when I was switching from earthenware to porcelain, slip trailing, trying to incorporate what I used to do with the texture and slip trailing. This is slip trailing as well, just trying to get a handle on what else I could do with the surface of the clay besides texture and then brush glazes on, which is what I was doing with the earthenware. There's some slab built tumblers with slip trailing on them. I made about 60 different color slips because I test a lot, and that was pretty insane because it made decision making really difficult while I was decorating. So I did weed them down to about a dozen after the fact. This is also slip trailing with a sort of a wash over top of the glaze, which is actually a Maiolica technique, but this is at cone 6. So again, this is just all of the things trying to figure out what would come next after the earthenware. And I have to say, I was pretty frustrated because I couldn't land on something, but I feel like now I appreciate that I have a lot of things I can draw on for inspiration. This is more of Neil's work.
So yeah, once we moved here, it was all electric firing. And I think we both embraced that pretty well. Started doing this cone 6 electric, and we have this nice tight clay that's vitreous, and developed a whole series of glazes. So I think you can see how this relates to a lot of the work that I did at the Clay Studio and kind of further developed it. And I've always looked at architecture for influences too, especially sacred architecture. So that has been something that has come through in my work. And just to go back, we've been here 21 years, and it's been a work in progress the entire time. So this was just 3 years ago. We finally got our bathroom renovated. This was after the front window. I think we have some slides coming up too of the facade, which was a big deal. That the Spring Garden Civic Association helped us out getting some grant money. This is our second floor classroom, pretty much as it's today.
Mhm.
And I think
Clean,
clean, yeah.
ready to go.
Yeah, and some of the absolutely wonderful people that we've had the privilege of exposing to clay and having them come in here, you know, for some creative time each week. It's been really to be a part of the neighborhood, as Jennifer was saying, for this long has been really
Such a
meaningful
blast. I mean, we taught
for
people
us.
who weren't even married and now their kids are taking our classes. So it's really comes full circle.
Yeah,
Um,
we've had school groups come, Discovery Charter School, some of their cops, the kids.
happiest. That's
Yeah.
joy. That's pure joy right
That is,
there.
yeah. So yeah, what about 6 years ago?
2015. Yeah.
The local civic association came to us and said there's some grant money out there for owner occupied businesses for facade improvement. Would you be interested? And we're like, yeah, let us know what we might need to do. Well, it was about a 2-year process.
Definitely. Because we had to work with the historic commission because our neighborhood was designated historic right after we moved here. And this was a challenging time, but
the most visible transformation of our space for sure.
And it's so beautiful and it makes a huge difference to the street.
unbelievable.
So
Still-
just before we move on here, this cornice work actually came off of a building in Old City. I think the next slide might show it. It was sitting in a warehouse somewhere. That building got torn down. So the brown is from the 1850s. Our building was built in 1851 and we tried to restore it back to
Right.
something that would be, there were no historical photos of what was there, but
But the upper cornice was there when you bought the building. I remember
that's
that.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
it
it was
even had paint remnants. You could sort of see, were there, did you take paint samples from up there?
No, we just picked colors that we liked that would
Nice
go.
that you projected these colors onto the old pictures.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was pink and gray when we bought it.
Oh,
The man who had been living here who died was a Navy veteran. I don't know if that's where the gray came from, but anyway.
It was really beautiful though, when the window was done, that people, strangers would come in and thank us for doing that. And we just were so touched by that because for us, it was, you know, we just needed to do something and we never thought we would get a window like that. So thank you to the Spring Garden CDC because they really made it possible, and other grants that we had applied to and match. So it was transformative, and it still is, the visibility.
yeah. And it is really a gift. That whole, when you walk down the street now, I mean, it just, yeah. And now other places have followed suit as well, which helps.
Yes.
even
And
more.
I love it. It's protected. So it will be here. The facade will be here long after us. And we have a few photos of events in December. Boy, we missed this, being able to put out a spread of food.
Yeah.
We were hoping for our birthday in a few weeks, we could do this again and have drinks, but
And
with
guests,
COVID, yeah.
It's hard for us not to feed people.
It's hard for
I feel
Sandy.
the same way.
Not to feed people.
Yeah, so hard. I understand.
But hey,
It'll happen again. Just need to wait a little longer. Look at that.
Yeah, we've always printed up postcards to advertise our events, starting with black and white back in the old days and color. So we have
we just put them out all over the neighborhood. I mean, that's really how we have built the
local
community involvement, is just putting the cards out there and, you know, getting the word out.
Do you want to tell people how we got our name?
Oh, sure. Well, I had started the class a year after we moved here. I had one in my old city studio, and I wanted to have a student show. So I put out a flyer. I did this rinky-dink flyer on the computer, and I put, "Your neighborhood potters are having a student show," and put out, you know, really did it up and made a nice show. Had an opening, and it was attended. It wasn't like gangbusters, but people came out, and so then a little while later, we heard somebody refer to us as neighborhood potters, and it was never anything that I thought as a name. I was just like, "Your neighborhood potters are having a, you know, a show, a student show," and And then we would hear it again, like, oh yeah, that's those people, that's the neighborhood potters. That's Sandy and Neil, the neighborhood potters. And we're like, I guess that's our name. It wasn't really a conscious thing. And we just thought, well, it's kind of friendly and seems a little hokey, but we're like, yeah, let's roll with it. People are already calling us that. So that was really something we had no intention of having a name. It was not even.
I think the first 5 years here, there was no name. It was just our studio, like a space to work.
Yeah. So that was a neighborhood involvement.
They named it.
Well, I love that people named you, but I think it's probably because you put out the vibe of being here for the neighborhood. So that's why they thought that. It's great. Oh, look, is that your current crew? Let's see. Oh no.
Well, we started a show, Young Guns and Geezers, about 4 or 5 years ago because we wanted to start just promoting younger potters in the area, because it's important to keep that sort of that young blood around, and also have them have access to all of our customers, because we're older and we want this place to keep going, and we just want them to be able to, our people come, their people come, and it's just a really nice thing to be able to cross promote that way and have all those young people
and show other work.
Yeah. So that was our crew a few years ago. Yeah.
Very nice.
Oh yeah, this was we had to figure out how to put glass shelving in the window just so we could kind of see through, and that's.
Yeah, we had to have a show, the shop had to have work all around it, but also we had it in the window, so that was a good solution.
And that's our cornice. That was it sitting in the warehouse before.
Oh, yeah.
Here it is in place. So from the 1850s, we managed to save that. I love that.
That's great. Love it.
And also neighborhood events. Fairmount couldn't do the arts crawl this past year, of course, because of COVID, but we always put a wheel out for these things. And
so we and a bunch of other people kind of got an arts crawl going at about in 2004 or 5, and it's lasted really all these years until this past year. So we don't know what will happen with that, but it's been great to have.
Yeah, that's another thing. You guys basically started the arts crawl, right?
yeah.
Well, there was other people involved too, and
You're part of it.
we kind of just made it bigger because
We definitely kept it going.
yeah,
That's
all.
That's great.
Our friendship, our broader clay community is so important to us. So these are just a bunch of potters that we're grateful to have in our lives.
It's just more work.
So I guess for me, this is getting to more current work, the coiled, these coil built things that I'm forming the coils over wheel thrown forms, or some are just free form. Like I said, I like to just allow myself the time to explore and branch out. Done some mosaic work. I've worked with schools. This is the theme of the sea. The world coming together. I love that. The kids came up with this image of hands shaking for this mosaic. Just love that. Yeah. There I am. Hoping to put some together. And of course, Gaudi is a huge influence on this. And I think we're getting to what we did as our COVID project was mosaic our yard at our house on Meredith Street. So we'll see slides of that in a minute, but this is getting to very current work for Sandi.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
Yeah, colored inlay. Very time consuming for Sandi.
I love it. So
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I love all those, the Gaudi sculptures are just amazing. And there's a painter called Huntertwasser, and then the Mola work, the applique work of the Kuna tribe is is really inspirational to me. This is our yard.
This was last summer during COVID. This was our project. We had all these boxes of broken pottery. There's, broken cup making up that butterfly, broken bowl for that. And
you can see the ugly stucco wall that we're covering.
We're covering that up. we laid a bunch of stuff out in our kitchen.
And here at the studio, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
great.
yeah, as we're completing it.
You know, we couldn't have classes, so we had all this. Usually we're eating dinner at the studio 4 nights a week, and, you know, we're working in the evenings as well as the day. So without having the evening classes, we just thought we could do a big project like this because we could just, you know, keep working until the light goes. And so it was real, and now we get to really enjoy it all year long, which is great. Because we all had our little havens that, you know,
Yes.
this was our entertainment center, really, the
We were so
backyard.
grateful. We felt really, really privileged to have this space during COVID, and this great neighborhood to be in. This is some work I made in the studio during COVID.
Yeah, I would walk by and see those little people in the window. Sometimes they are holding little signs, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Our messages.
Yeah.
Yeah. Animals, more coil work. This is a lot of work to share. Thank you all for being willing and patient.
It's exciting to see all the stuff that you're making. Yeah.
We
Well, so
make all this stuff.
you had it in COVID with the mosaic was one thing, but do you feel either or both of you that your personal bodies of work also just kind of took a little zoom because you had more time to yourselves in your own work rather than being kind of busy with?
Well, yeah, I mean, it definitely made for a more concentrated time because, you know, when you're running classes and stuff, there's a lot of maintenance that has to happen for that. And even though we do have help, we do a lot of it. And so not having that was huge. We felt that we had more focused time in the studio. We can come in and just work, which used to be that way years ago. So it was great. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff that you could try because you weren't really, there wasn't a show you were doing, or so it was, yeah.
And yeah, allowing ourselves to get involved with more time consuming work.
Yeah.
I think too.
Well, I want to make sure that we allow anyone who wants to make a comment or share a memory they have of Sandi and Neil, or just, you know, ask a technical question. I think we might have answered most of the things. Oh, I know. Erica Ginsburg asked if you can talk about pricing without giving away too many secrets, she said.
Pricing.
We, since the beginning, we've done time studies, like how long we spend on each piece, which I think is more of a pottery, like a functional pottery kind of way of approaching pricing, more so than art pieces. So
that can be depressing. I'll tell you.
It's important to be aware of that. I feel like
you have to be aware of it. But a lot of it is what really the people will pay for some, you know, I mean, you have to really think about everything, the timing and how, I will talk about Katherine Nara a little bit. She'll hate this because she doesn't like attention, but Katherine was really a huge influence on me. I have such great memories of Katherine at the studio. I would go up. She's the first production potter I ever knew. And I actually had some of her work before I even went to the clay studio. And she would be up there working in the old building, and I would help her make newspaper balls for shipping. And this would be late at night. And she was just always so helpful. And when I decided to try to do this for a living, I had talked to Katherine a bit about pricing. And I would tell her how much I was going to charge for something. And I said, because that's all I can afford. And she said, oh, Sandi, you can't afford much. She said, so you have to, you know, she said, you have to keep your prices the same. If you want to have integrity in this, you can't sell your work at your studio for one price and then a gallery for another price. She said, so you have to decide what you need to charge for this piece and double it, because if you're selling at galleries as well, which I was hoping to, you have to have that integrity. And she was so right. And she said, and if you're not comfortable with a higher price, start lower, because you can always go up. If you have a high price on something and you sell a couple of them and then the rest of them don't, it's hard to go down. So I'll never forget that. And I just feel like between the clay studio and Katherine, I don't know that I certainly wouldn't be a potter, because I never realized that somebody could actually do that. And so that to me, the pricing is something it is difficult. So that's how I did it, listening to that.
Thanks a lot. We know you guys, and you know my husband. We'll stop by every once in a while.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah.
definitely know you. Yeah.
Yeah. I have your jewelry.
yeah, you
your
were-
pots.
You
Um,
you did some new stuff for the arts crawl.
No, I didn't. But I
Okay.
just want to say my husband's beginning a jewelry business, and he's read what you've said about the pricing. That you need to be aware of the time to keep the price constant between what you might sell from your own shop versus a gallery or store. And when you sell at a store, you need to double it. So you kind of also need to double it at home as well. So thank you so much for sharing that. It does confirm. Yeah.
Sure.
We love your stuff, and it does really bring joy every time we pull it out. So,
Thank you.
Love that.
Thanks, Erica. Yeah, send us info about your husband's jewelry.
thank you for the invitation. I will.
Good. Let's see, there's some other. Someone asks, is there a form that you've struggled with or a type of pot you've wanted to make that couldn't get it quite to your standards? Interesting question.
God, just about everything.
Oh my God.
No, it's a
I
good question. It's a
think
great question.
Sandy's a great person to share a studio with, because I think we're alike, that we are constantly trying to improve our work. And yeah, like cups are the most intimate and in many ways the most challenging form. So I keep striving to make better and better cups.
Handles.
And
Handles are, that is to me the ultimate good pot has an amazing
Challenge.
handle. They're challenging, but I'm not even sure it's up to your standards. It's like sometimes I start stuff, I have an idea, and then I don't know what it is, and then it changes. And I have had something wrapped up for 3 weeks that I just don't even know if I'm going to finish it, because I started it and it wasn't going how I thought. And so sometimes I just wrap stuff up, and then I come back weeks later and I look at it and I think, oh, that's what it is. So, yeah, that's
Pretty nice for anything in life.
yeah,
Writing is like that too for me.
yeah,
I
sure. Yeah.
write it and then wait a week and then look at it again, which is not great if you wait till the last minute. So yeah, sometimes the simplest forms, right? Like Neil was saying about the cup. I mean, if it's so simple, it's anything that isn't working is going to be blaring, right? I guess.
Yeah, and it's something that people interact with every single day. So you want it to be good. You want it to feel good, and it is. It's a challenge.
Matt asks, how do you divide up the time required for making your own pots for sale, doing shows, and running a school?
Well, we're not doing shows
Eating
anymore.
and sleeping.
Really. Yeah.
we put on our own
The
events.
response is to laugh.
What's
Yeah,
that?
I respond with a laugh, Matt.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll let you know.
Yeah.
when
How do you do it, Matt? Yeah.
My teaching really supports my art making habit. I make a lot of artwork and stuff, but it doesn't really. I don't get really much income from that. But my artwork justifies people hiring me for teaching gigs. So I sort of justify it that way.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, we need both. We need teaching and selling pots. It's probably half and half. So, last year was a big hit financially.
no
No
teaching.
teaching. That's half our income. But, we're established enough and we had been able to save over the last several years. If it were 10 years ago, it would have been a lot rougher. But so that, we balance it out too. So we need both to make it all work. And having help in the studio helps us to be
Yeah,
able to.
we should give a shout out to our new crew, because we have
a
we're
great
so
crew.
happy to have a crew. We mentioned Adam Ledford. He was in one of the photos as a young gun. He's been with us for like 11 years now. He's teaching for us. He's
a great
he's
teacher.
done
Yeah.
so much work for us over those 10, 12 years, and a really good teacher.
Yeah.
Anthony Romero is helping us out as a studio manager now. And Emma Pilon, who also teaches at the Clay Studio, she's kind of helping us out with gallery management.
Yep.
So
And
it's really,
Ann Kazalka, she's also a teacher that's been with us for a long time. So
really long,
we
yeah.
are grateful to them because it takes so many people to help us do that, do it all.
Well, ending with gratitude is always good, and I will end by thanking you two again so much.
Thank you
for
so
spending
much.
time
Thank
with
you
us,
for
sharing.
Oh, there's so
Thank
many
you
people
so
that
much
tune
for
in.
your
We
time.
appreciate you
Oh my
spending the
goodness.
hour with
Yeah,
us.
it's
Yes.
yeah, and
Come see
by-
us in person.
Yes, yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
Kat. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it's good
We
to see your
hope-
faces.
Yeah.
We hope we'll see everyone next Saturday at the Clay Studios new location. The building's not open, but we're having Clay Fest right in front of the new building on September 18th. And we will even be happy to give you a hard hat tour if you want to do that.
Hey, oh, it's so exciting.
And then the next weekend, everyone go to Neil and Sandy's for their sale. And then the weekend after that, come to the old building because we're going to have the last First Friday in Old City on October 1st, and October 2nd, we're having an open house so everyone can say goodbye to the building and sign your name on the wall and take pictures. And by the way, we're also having a benefit auction right now. So please go to our website and see a proper send off if you would like to bid on one of the amazing works of art we have there to help us. When Neil, you showed that great image of the Italian museum with all the pots on the shelf.
Yeah.
We are going to have our permanent collection on view in the new building for everyone to get to see, just like that. Maybe not Etruscan pots, but
Right.
some really good ones. And the benefit of the auction is going to go into funding that display. So anyway, that's my little business end of the talk today, but thank you guys again. Thank you everyone for
Thanks everyone for
being
taking the
here.
time. Thank you.
Feel
Thank
free
you,
to stay on and say hi or bye for a minute if you like, and have a great day.
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks, Neil and Sandy. There's
It's an
lots of
honor. It's
welcome.
such an honor
Yes,
to
it
be
is an
asked to
honor.
do this.
Oh my
give us
gosh,
a call.
it's an honor that you said yes. Thank you so much.
See ya.
All right,
Bye.
talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.